It was supposed to be a joke, just a fun little DNA kit my sister gave me during a quiet weekend getaway. But when the results came back, everything I thought I knew about my family shattered, and that was just the beginning. My name is Rachel Bennett. I smiled politely, already sensing the wine talking. It was a girls' weekend at a rented cabin 2 hours outside the city, just the two of us, trying to reclaim some of the closeness we had as kids. Megan always the wild one, the loud one, the unapologetically bold one. Me? I was the opposite. Reserved, quiet, observant. I'd always admired her, and sometimes resented how easily she owned every room. I peeled away the shiny paper to reveal a home DNA kit. 23 Genitrace, the label read. I'd seen ads for it online. It wasn't exactly a thoughtful gift, but Megan was never one for sentimentality. Come on, do it, she pressed. What if we're like half Spanish or something? I always thought my nose looked different than yours. Her tone was playful, teasing, but I caught a flicker in her eyes, just a twitch. Nervous? Maybe just drunk. Still, something didn't sit right. All right, I said, forcing a laugh. Let's find out if you're actually my evil twin. We clinked glasses and made jokes, and later that night, I spit into the little plastic tube, sealed it, and wrote my name on the packet. The next morning, I dropped it into the outgoing mail at the tiny post office down the road. I didn't think about it again, not until the email arrived 3 weeks later. The email notification blinked on my screen like a warning light I didn't know I should fear. Your DNA results are ready. I was sitting at my kitchen counter, sipping reheated coffee and scrolling aimlessly. My first reaction was excitement. Maybe I'd learn something cool about my heritage. Something interesting to talk about over dinner with Megan next week. I clicked the link. What I saw first made me laugh, then blink, then go cold. No immediate family matches found. I refreshed the page. Still nothing. The little interface that was supposed to light up with color-coded connections, parents, siblings, cousins, was empty. Nothing. Blank. I checked the kid number, my name, everything. It was all correct. No parents. No sister. I felt a tightness growing in my chest, like a rubber band pulled too far. I sent a screenshot to Megan with a joking message. You sure I am your sister? No reply. An hour passed. Then 2. That night, I tossed in bed, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me. My mind kept replaying old memories, noticing, for the first time, the small cracks I'd ignored my whole life. How Mom would look away when people said we looked alike. How I never saw a single baby picture of myself before age 2. How Dad once slipped and said something about when we got you and then laughed it off. I remembered asking Mom when I was 10 why there weren't any ultrasound photos of her pregnant with me. She said she didn't like hospitals. I believed her. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Megan. Can we talk later? That was it. No emojis, no sarcasm, just that. I told her yes. And while I waited, I opened the hallway closet, the one where Mom used to keep old documents. When she and Dad moved to Florida, they left a few boxes labeled sentimental stuff. I opened one. Photos, letters, a hospital bracelet, Megan's birth certificate. But mine? Not there. I dug deeper. In a folder marked Rachel Medical, I found a pediatrician's report dated from when I was 2.5. Nothing before that. No newborn checkups. No birth hospital records. I checked the name of the pediatrician. Dr. Evelyn Moore. Something about that name stuck with me. I remembered seeing her once when I was 12. She had been kind, soft-spoken, but strange. She had asked me a question no one else ever had. Do you know where you were born, sweetie? At the time, I just shrugged. I thought she was making conversation. But now, it sounded like a test. I Googled her. She was retired now, but her clinic was still open. I wrote down the number. That afternoon, I drove by our childhood home. It had been sold, but the maple tree in the front yard was still there. That tree used to be my tree. But as I looked at it now, I couldn't remember planting it. Couldn't remember climbing it. Megan always said we planted it together when I was 3, but why was there no photo? My parents were photo obsessed with Megan. I called the clinic. A receptionist answered, "Yes, Dr. Moore did see a Rachel Bennett starting around age 2. That's all we have on file, nothing before that?" I asked. "No, I'm afraid not. Looks like you were a new patient in the fall of that year. That was the last confirmation I needed. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. Something was off. Deep down, I knew I had never belonged the way I thought I did. And somehow Megan knew it too." Later that evening, Megan showed up unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there, no makeup, hoodie pulled over her head, holding a coffee cup like it was a shield. She looked scared. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice low. I nodded and stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen table in silence for a few moments. My untouched coffee had gone cold, and I didn't know how to start. Megan stared into her lap. "So," I finally said, "wanna explain why my DNA test says I'm a ghost?" Her eyes flinched. She took a long breath and finally said, "I never thought it would actually show up like that. I thought maybe it wouldn't work. I don't know. I just thought you'd laugh it off." "Megan, what the hell are you talking about?" She looked at me then. Her eyes were rimmed with red. "You're not my biological sister, Rachel." Everything stopped. My breath, the room, the sound of the fridge buzzing behind me. "What?" I whispered. "You were adopted." "Sort of," she continued. "I found out when I was 13. I heard Mom and Dad talking in the garage. They said you weren't supposed to be ours, that you weren't meant to stay." I stared at her, the words sinking like weights into my chest. "Meant to stay?" I repeated. "What does that even mean?" Megan wiped at her face. "I didn't get all of it, but from what I heard, you were left. Someone left you at the clinic. Dr. Moore's clinic. Like, abandoned." I felt like I'd been punched. "They said she called Mom," Megan continued, "because they had just lost a baby the week before. Stillborn. No one else knew. So when Dr. Moore called and said a toddler was left on her doorstep, crying, no ID, nothing, Mom told Dad it was a sign from God." My ears rang. "They never filed papers. They just took you." Moved away 6 months later. Changed jobs, neighborhoods, everything. "They told everyone you were born premature, which is why there were no photos." It was easier than explaining the truth. I stood up. The room tilted. "No," I muttered. "No, they wouldn't do that. That's illegal." "That's I know," she said softly. "That's why it was a secret. Even from you." My body moved before my brain could process. I grabbed my keys, my bag. Megan called after me, but I ignored her. I was already in the car when she followed me out. "Where are you going?" "To Florida." "You're going to confront them?" "Damn right I am. The drive took 2 days. I didn't sleep the first night. Just kept going. The road blurred with tears. I rehearsed everything I wanted to say, then tore it up and started over. By the time I pulled into my parents' gated community, the sun was low and the sky was bleeding orange. Mom answered the door. She froze when she saw me. "Rachel?" I pushed past her into the living room. Dad looked up from his recliner, surprised. I didn't waste time. "Tell me it's not true," I said. "Tell me Megan is lying." Their faces crumbled. Mom sat down slowly. "I always knew this day would come. Then why didn't you prepare for it?" I snapped. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you lie to me for 26 years? Dad tried to speak, but Mom held up a hand. "Because we were afraid," she said simply. "We thought if we told you, you'd hate us, that you'd leave. You didn't give me a chance to choose." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "You were too. Abandoned. Dirty. You couldn't even speak clearly. They left you with a blanket and a toy elephant. That's all. No name. No note. Just you." Dad added, "We had just lost our son. Your brother. He died before he took his first breath. When Dr. Moore called us, we were drowning in grief. We weren't thinking about laws or consequences. We just saw a second chance." My vision blurred. "So you stole me?" "No," Mom said sharply. "We saved you. You were left to die. No one ever came looking. Not even the police. We gave you a home, a family, a life, and a lie." I shot back. You gave me a life based on a lie. I left their house without another word, checked into a cheap hotel by the beach and just sat in silence. I stared at the elephant toy they had handed me after our fight faded, stitched with a name tag. Maddy. My name had never been Rachel. That wasn't even mine. Who was I? I didn't know, but I was going to find out. The next morning, I sat at the edge of the motel bed, staring at the ocean. Waves crashed like thunder against the shore, but the storm was inside me now. I hadn't slept, just laid there all night, the elephant toy clenched in my hands, its little stitched eyes staring back. I had a name, Maddy. Someone gave me that name once. Someone who left me behind. I needed answers, but not just from my parents. Dr. Moore's clinic hadn't changed much. The same faded awning, same cramped waiting room. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the door marked Records Private. A nurse came out. I showed her my ID and said, I need to speak with Dr. Moore. It's about something that happened in 1999. She raised an eyebrow, then disappeared inside. Minutes passed. Then the door opened again. An elderly woman stepped out. Her hair was silver now, but I remembered her eyes. Rachel, she said softly. It's Maddy, I whispered. Her face paled. Oh my God. We sat in her office. She didn't make me ask. I never thought I'd see you again, she began. You were left in a blanket, barely speaking. Just kept saying mama over and over. There was no information, no note, nothing. Why didn't you call the police? I did, she said. They made a report, but back then, things slipped through the cracks. When no one came forward after 30 days, and your parents, well, the Bennetts offered to take you in. They weren't even on a list. They had just lost a baby, I know. I tried to talk them into going through legal channels. They refused, said no one else wanted you, and if I didn't help, you'd end up in the system. I clenched my fists. You let them steal me, she nodded slowly. Yes, I did, and I've carried that for 24 years. I got back into my car, shaking. The storm was no longer building. It was here, and it was time to let it break. That night, I returned to my parents' house. They were watching TV. Mom looked up, startled. Rachel. Maddy, I corrected. That's my name. Dad stood. Please, let us explain. I threw the elephant onto the coffee table. No, you sit, and you listen. I paced the room, fire building in my chest. You lied to me every day of my life, every birthday, every milestone. You stood there and smiled, knowing I was living a life built on your decision to steal a child. We didn't steal you, Mom cried. Then what would you call it? I snapped. You didn't adopt me. You didn't go through any court. You just took me and left town. That's kidnapping. Dad's face reddened. We saved you. No, you saved yourselves. You lost a child and filled the hole with me. I was your emotional bandage, not a daughter, a replacement. Tears streamed down Mom's face. We loved you like our own. You didn't even tell me the truth, I yelled. You watched me go through life not knowing who I was, not knowing if I had a family out there. If someone's been looking for me, Mom sobbed. We thought they were gone. No one came. No one looked. You didn't even try to find out who I was. You never wondered? Dad sat down, defeated. We were afraid if we dug too deep, we'd lose you. And we couldn't handle that. My voice broke. That wasn't your choice to make. Silence. Thick. Crushing. I don't know if I can forgive you, I whispered. Mom stood and walked toward me. She reached out, but I stepped back. I need space, I said. I need to find out who I really am, and that means letting go of what you made me believe. You're still our daughter, Dad said softly. No, I'm someone else's daughter too, and I have no idea who that is. But I'm going to find out. Outside, the sky was dark, but I felt lighter. I wasn't done. Not even close, but I had started. And that was something. The motel room was silent except for the hum of the mini fridge. I lay on the bed, arms folded over my chest, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. The storm had passed, but in its wake was a heavy, aching stillness. I hadn't spoken to Megan since the confrontation. I ignored my parents' texts, long messages filled with explanations, apologies, memories. None of it mattered right now. I wasn't ready to hear them. I didn't know when I would be. I opened my phone and scrolled through photos, birthdays, vacations, holidays, smiles plastered over decades of deception. They still felt like my memories, but now they also felt borrowed, like I was watching someone else's life. That afternoon, I visited a small park by the beach. Children laughed on the swings. A woman sat on a bench reading to a toddler. The sight filled me with a longing I couldn't name. Was someone out there wondering what happened to me? Did they cry for me when I vanished? I opened my laptop and started researching missing persons reports from 1996 to 1999. I narrowed it by region, by gender, by age. Thousands of names, thousands of photos. None of them were me. I posted in a few online forums, genealogy sites, adoption support communities, lost family groups. I uploaded a baby picture I found in my parents' attic next to the elephant toy. I wrote a short message. Found out I was abandoned around 1999 in Georgia, searching for any biological family. DNA test revealed no matches so far. If anyone recognizes me, please reach out. I stared at the post for 10 minutes before clicking submit. Then I waited. 2 days passed, no replies, no leads. Megan texted again. I'm here when you're ready. I didn't answer. I couldn't tell if I was angry at her or grateful she told me. Maybe both. A memory surfaced from when we were kids, Megan pushing me on the swing, then jumping in front to block the sun with her silly grin. I'll always be here, Ratch. Promise. She'd kept that promise, hadn't she? Even if it came with a bomb. I drove back to the old neighborhood, not to my parents' house, just past it. The streets I once rode my bike down now looked unfamiliar, alien. I stopped outside our old elementary school. The playground was smaller than I remembered, the monkey bars rusty, but the bench beneath the big oak tree was still there. My favorite spot. I sat there for an hour. A woman walked by with her dog and did a double take. You look like someone I used to know, she said. I froze. Who? She tilted her head. There was a girl in my sister's foster home years ago. They called her Maddy. Curly brown hair. Scared of thunderstorms, my heart skipped. I pulled up the photo I'd found, the one of me at 2, clinging to the elephant. The woman gasped. That's her. She gave me her sister's number. That night, I called. Her name was Laura. She'd run a small licensed foster home back in the late 90s. When I told her who I was, her voice trembled. Oh my God, you're alive. She remembered everything. You came to us in 99. You were terrified, could barely talk, wouldn't let go of that stuffed elephant. Said mama all the time, but never gave a name. Where did I come from? No one knew. Social services said you were found outside a clinic. No ID, just you. Tears welled in my eyes. I remember holding you that first night. You had this tiny scratch on your cheek. You flinched when anyone got too close, but you always wanted to sleep holding someone's hand. She paused. They said they found a family. I never knew what happened after. My voice cracked. They didn't adopt me. They took me. Silence. I'm so sorry, she said. I wish I'd fought harder after the call. I broke down completely, not out of anger, out of relief. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't made it all up. There was a record. There were people who remembered me. I wasn't a ghost. I was Maddy. I called Megan. She answered on the first ring. Hey, she said, tentative. I found someone, I said. She remembered me. That's amazing, Megan whispered. I've been thinking about you every second. I didn't know how to fix it. You can't fix it, I said. But you told me the truth, and that matters. A pause. Do you want to meet for coffee? She asked. I hesitated, then nodded, even though she couldn't see. Yeah, I said. I think I do. That night, I took out a journal and began writing. Every detail I could remember from childhood. Every dream. Every question. Not just to remember, to reclaim. I didn't know who my birth parents were, but I was finally walking the road toward that truth. And this time, I was doing it as myself, not Rachel, Maddy. 2 months later, I walked through the glass doors of the courthouse, a folder clutched tightly in my hands. Inside were copies of every document: the DNA results, the foster care records, the police report Dr. Moore filed back in 1999, everything I'd need to file a formal complaint against my parents. No, against the people who raised me. I wasn't doing it out of spite. I was doing it for the little girl who was never given a choice. For Maddy. Before I filed, I met with a lawyer, a kind woman named Tasha who had handled other cases involving illegal adoptions. She read through the documents slowly, then looked up and said, "We have enough to pursue legal action. If you want to, I do." She nodded. "You may not get a criminal conviction after all this time, but we can seek recognition. And maybe more." That was enough. I didn't need revenge. I needed acknowledgement. I needed the truth on paper. Meanwhile, I was building a new life. I changed my name legally to Madison Grace Holloway. Maddy. I signed the forms and held the certificate in my hands. It felt like signing the front page of my own story, a story I was finally writing. I even went back to therapy, this time with a different purpose. Not to fix what was broken, but to understand the scars, to trace the outlines of pain and say, "This is mine, but it doesn't define me." Megan and I met for lunch every week. Our bond was different now, strained but honest. We had open conversations, real ones, where we didn't pretend everything was perfect. One afternoon, she asked, "Do you hate them?" I stirred my coffee. "I don't know," I said. "Some days I think I do. Other days, I just feel empty." She nodded. "You don't owe them anything, I know. But I'm still working on forgiving myself for not knowing, for not asking sooner." She reached across the table. "That wasn't your job. You were a child. You survived." 3 weeks later, I received a letter. It was from Laura, the foster mom who remembered me. She wrote, "I've kept every file, every note, every photo I had from my time as a foster parent. I found one of you. It's from your third day with us. You're holding that elephant, and you're smiling, truly smiling." Inside the envelope was the photo. Tears welled in my eyes as I looked at it. Proof that I had existed before the lies. Proof of joy. I scanned it, framed it, and placed it by my bed. At the final hearing, the judge read through my statement. My parents sat behind me. They didn't speak. When the judge acknowledged that my identity had been withheld and that the adoption was never legally processed, she turned to me. "Miss Holloway," she said, "you are now recognized by the state as having been misidentified. We cannot undo what was done, but we can give your name, your voice, and your truth back to you." I nodded, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. I walked out of that courtroom into the warm sunlight. No longer a shadow. Not someone's replacement. Not someone's secret. Me, just me, Maddy. It's strange how the quiet feels different now. I used to dread silence. It reminded me of uncertainty, of things left unsaid, of the ache of not knowing. But now, silence feels like space. Space to breathe, to think, to heal. I sit on the back porch of my new apartment. It has nothing fancy, a small balcony overlooking a row of sleepy trees, but it has mine. Every photo on the wall, every piece of furniture, every book was chosen by me. For the first time, I'm building a life with intention, not with borrowed memories or someone else's vision of who I'm supposed to be. I kept the elephant toy. It sits on a shelf above my desk, worn, faded, but still intact, a symbol of both my beginning and my resilience. I still don't have all the answers. I haven't found my birth parents. I haven't pieced together every gap in the timeline, but I've learned something far more valuable than a name or an origin. That identity isn't just about where you come from. It's about who you choose to become when the truth comes to light. I chose to face it, to stand in the storm, and I didn't get swept away. That's worth everything. The people who raised me, I don't speak to them anymore. Not because I hate them, but because love without truth is hollow, and I refuse to build my future on lies. Maybe someday we'll meet again. Maybe not. But for now, I've closed that door. And that too is healing. As for Megan, we're closer now than we've been in years. The truth tested us, but we didn't break. If anything, it made our bond real for the first time. We talk about the future now, about travel, about starting over, about never keeping secrets from the people we love. She still jokes that giving me that DNA kit was the best mistake she ever made. I smile when she says that, because she's right. There's something deeply powerful about reclaiming your own story, about standing up and saying, "This is who I am." No matter how I was written into the world, I lost a lot, but I gained myself, and that's a story worth telling.